Good evening, all. Welcome to the third pre-launch talk series in connection with the Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention of Calicut Management Association. We'll now start with a silent prayer. Please rise for this time. Thank you. I now invite the Chairman of the Annual Management Convention, Mr. Ashik KP, for the welcome address.
Ladies and gentlemen, a warm good evening to you all. It's indeed a great pleasure to welcome you all for the CMA monthly talk and annual management pre-conference public talk. It's indeed a happy occasion as we have with us an eminent orator, leader, and pathfinder on good governance in public service delivery management. I don't want to introduce Sri Venu Rajamony before you, as he is well known to you as a committed and acclaimed civil servant, holding such esteemed offices such as Officer on Special Duty in the rank of Chief Secretary, Government of Kerala, former Ambassador of India to Netherlands, etc. On behalf of CMA, Annual Management Convention Committee, and all of you present here, I, with great pride, welcome Sri Venu Rajamony. I request Mr. Kumar, the convener, to hand over a flower to him. With great pride, once again, welcome Sri Venu Rajamony. Ladies and gentlemen, we have our annual management convention to be held at the prestigious IIMK campus on 27th and 28th of this month. The registration already began. After this program, I request all members to register tonight itself, as we have limited entry to the program. We have international acclaimed leaders who are agreed to attend the conference and will share their experience and thoughts in the meeting. Once again, I welcome the chief guest and our vibrant president who will preside over this function, and the convener, Mr. Pradeep Kumar, treasurer, CA Chartered Accountant Ranjini Umesh, and Secretary Srinath, past presidents, and the invited guests and dear friends. Thank you very much. And with due respect, I request Mr. Anandamani to preside over the function. Thank you very much.
Chairman of this meeting, Mr. Ashik. Chief guest of the evening, Mr. Venu Rajamony. Past presidents, managing committee members, fellow CMA members, invited guests, valuable participants, and all others who are gathered out over here. feeling really privileged to stand before you on this fine evening, and especially in the context of another great speaker's talk for the pre-launch talk series in connection with the Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention, which is going to be taking place at Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode on August 27 and 28. In fact, today we have the third important speaker for this pre-launch talk series, a person of not only national but high international repute, a global personality, Mr. Venu Rajamony. In fact, this is the third and the final pre-launch talk series as a run-up to the annual management convention. When most of the important guests, even Mr. Venu, couldn't tally with the dates for the annual management convention because of the busy schedule elsewhere and many other connected matters, Mr. Venu and all others who have addressed us were ready to give us alternative dates, and thus we have Mr. Venu addressing us today. In fact, when I mentioned to our annual management committee chairman, Mr. Ashik, that there is the clash of dates, it quickly prompted his head to invite all of them as a special talk series called pre-launch talk series. Kudos to Ashik, but at the same time, Adhyapakinte buddhi ennallathu kuda onnu ivide rekappadutha. So what has happened is we have not lost Mr. Venu Rajamony as a speaker. Previously, it was Dr. Shashi Tharoor who addressed us. The Tata Consultancy Services head, Mr. Girish Ramendran addressed us, and with Mr. Venu talk, we are moving straight again to the preparations and to the run-up of the annual management conventions. We are really honored and excited to have you here today on this fine evening, and to inform you all, the preparation of annual management convention is getting unfolded one by one, and you all will be having a lineup of the speakers shortly with a pamphlet which is going to be, hopefully many of them would have got the most important personalities of national and international repute is addressing us, right from Mr. T.P. Srinivasan, the former ambassador, another great personality who has contributed to the management as well as the entrepreneurial network, Mr. Shibulan of Infosys, and many, many others who I'm not reading the names of everybody, but you can have them in the pamphlet. So, in fact, this pre-launch talk series will give you inputs so as to be discussed and debated in the annual management convention when you all gather at IAM. It's true that this is a context setting for the annual management convention. So the structure of today's meeting is, after I talk, Mr. Venu will be talking to you for 30 minutes or so, and then followed by a Q&A. Unfortunately, he has to leave tonight itself to Cochin because of a sudden re-engagement tomorrow morning. So questions, what you raised should be crisp and precise to the point. So truly blessed by a gracious presence, Mr. Venu, and on behalf of each one of us at Calicut Management Association and on behalf of the entire audience gathered out over here, I express my profuse thanks for accepting our invitation, and he flight out exclusively for this meeting yesterday from Delhi and leaving back tonight. That's also what I have informed you on. That's the strain he has taken to accept our invite. And a huge big thanks to the entire audience who are here with your valuable presence. So dear audience, I am sure this talk will give you great hopes of accomplishing great input from his valuable speech. And in conclusion, many thanks to one and all for joining in good numbers. And to you, sir, we are looking forward confidently that you will generate more interest as you share your perspectives on the topic, where are we heading in the changed world order, and especially as today happens to be the International Youth Day. So lots of pleasure. I wrap up my presidential address, and now I call upon you, sir, to address this august audience. Sorry, the secretary, Mr. Srinath, will give an introduction about the respective speaker.
Thank you, President. Welcome to all. It's a great honor for me to introduce and welcome our chief guest to this evening, Mr. Venu Rajamony, officer on special duty in the rank of Chief Secretary, External Cooperation at Government of Kerala and former Ambassador of India to the Netherlands. He is also the Professor of Diplomatic Practice, OP Jindal Global University. 34 years of career in diplomacy, value-driven, inspiring leader with a strong intellectual capacity and extensive experience in government, advocacy, communication, media relation, and outreach to corporates, civil society, as well as public. Lived and worked in India, the US, Europe, China, UAE, multilateral experience in Geneva, New York, and Tokyo. He has exceptional people skill, adept at the building networks. Served as a press secretary to Indian President Pranab Mukherjee and chef cabinet to Indian Foreign Minister Yashwant Sinha. Capable to building long-term vision, shaping strategy, and delivering significant operational results. Good manager who attaches high importance to focus implementation, periodic monitoring, evaluation of outcomes and financial as well as reputation risk management. Skilled in identifying priorities, fixing targets, and leading a team effort to achieve quantifiable and time-bound goals. Tenure as India's ambassador to the Netherlands as a Consul General of India in Dubai, marked by a number of unique initiatives. Author of 3 books, India and Netherlands, Past, Present, and Future. What we can learn from the Dutch, Rebuilding Kerala post-flood of 2018, and India and the UAE in celebration of a legacy of friendship. Lead India's policy towards multilateral financial institutions like World Bank, IMF, Asian Bank, Asian Development Bank, African Development Bank, and International Fund for Agriculture Development Bank. Asia Foundation Fellow at the Center for Strategic International Studies, Washington, D.C. during 2001-2002. Authorized a widely cited monograph, India, China, US, a soft balance of power system in making. Venu Rajamony is married to Dr. Saroj Thape, an educationalist from Darjeeling, and they are parents of 2 sons, one of an engineer in the USA and the other lawyer in Delhi. Firm believer in technology and its power to transform life. Passionate about social impact, eager to contribute to making the world a better place for the disadvantaged, unprivileged person. Today, we are privileged to have an opportunity to listen of him in this evening. On behalf of all gathered here, I welcome Sir on the Silver Jubilee pre-talk series of Calicut Management Association. Thank you so much.
I now invite Sir Venu Rajamony for the address.
Evening, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Srinath did such a wonderful job. I think I have to hire him to write my LinkedIn profile, which is probably what you read already. Anyway, Engineer Anand Mani, the president of today's session, president of the Calicut Management Association, Mr. Ashik, who delivered the welcome address. We have Pradeep and Rajani. So Pradeep and Rajani, sorry, and all good friends who are gathered here, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's truly a pleasure to be back in Calicut. Once again, I was here last about 4 months ago when the Swiss ambassador came to participate in the 30th anniversary of the foundation of Malabar Belma, which was with Swiss government assistance, and the 35th anniversary of Indo-Swiss cooperation, the famous Indo-Swiss project in Delhi. So that was when I came, and I recall going for a morning walk with the ambassador and the district collector, visiting all the institutions associated with the Basel mission, which is an important part of the history of Calicut, and Basel is a town in Switzerland. And even earlier, one of my most memorable visits to Calicut was before I went as consultant of India in Dubai, which was mentioned here. I visited all places across Kerala associated with Arab history, Kerala's connections with the Arab world. And that was such an eye-opener for me. In fact, I felt embarrassed and ashamed that having been born and brought up in Kerala, I still did not know how deep and how extensive these connections are. Much of that I have also recorded in a book called India and the UAE in celebration of a legendary friendship. So Calicut is truly a very special place. I was born in Thiruvananthapuram and I grew up in Cochin. My youth was in Cochin. I studied in Maharajas College and Ernakulam Law College. I worked as a journalist, as staff correspondent of the Indian Express in Cochin for 2.5 years before I joined the Foreign Service. So for all those reasons, much of my life has revolved around Cochin and Thiruvananthapuram. Calicut is a city I do not know as well as I know the other two cities. And the people of Calicut are people I do not know as well as I know people from these two cities. So I told Anand earlier this evening, I'm very happy to come to Calicut again and again to meet all of you and to meet more of the residents of this wonderful city as well as northern part of Kerala as part of my own self-education. So thank you very much for inviting me, giving me an opportunity to come here. Also compliments on the dynamism and the efficiency with which Anand pursued me and made sure that I would say yes and come ahead. There was no way I would back out. I'm sorry, I was. Initially, we had started talking about attending the annual management convention, but the dates didn't work out. I think it is impressive that you have the flexibility to create a new talk series and then get people there. So I think this is a very commendable management practice, which many organizations and many people can emulate. Compliments to you for having started this. Anand has given me this topic, where are we heading in the changed world order? And I was told Shashi Tharoor also spoke on the same topic. So there's a little bit of an element of competition. I don't know how much we will repeat the same thing or I will say something different. But when I saw this topic, the first thing which occurred to me, and in fact I did mention to him, is where are we? Who are we talking about when we say we? Is it India? Is it Kerala? Is it all of us people? Is it youth, since it is Youth Day? But even more important, I think, is when you look at the world and you say, where are we heading in a changed world order? The presumption is that there has been change, but still there is an order. And that is the first thing that I would question. I would say that actually, if you look at the world today, there is disorder rather than order. There is chaos and there is confusion. And there is a lot of uncertainty and unpredictability in the world. So truly, we are talking about a new world disorder rather than a changed world order. And that is what we must all understand and assimilate as we look at the world. And why do I say it is a disorder? I think the answers are fairly obvious to most of you who follow current affairs, all of you who have lived through the pandemic. The pandemic itself has been such a historical event which has disrupted everybody's life, which has caused enormous havoc to health of individuals, to health of societies, to health of countries, which has resulted in economies of countries being severely set back, economies of individuals, of families, of companies having gone bankrupt. But more than all of this, the pandemic has worsened inequality. It has worsened inequality in our state, it has worsened inequality in the country, it has worsened inequality globally. even today, where most of us here probably have had the luxury of 2 vaccinations. There are many Western countries who have gone into a 3rd booster shot, or even have already begun talking about annual vaccination for COVID, even as this new threat of monkeypox looms large. But there are many African countries, there are many people across the world who haven't had a chance to have 1 vaccination. And that is the inequality that we see. And on top of that, what the pandemic has also unleashed, if you look at how the pandemic progressed, is a wave of selfishness. A wave of selfishness where every country tries to hoard vaccines, every country tries to look after its own people, every country tries to grab medicines. Even within countries, you would recall in India, in Delhi, there was this big oxygen shortage, huge lines in front of medical shops to buy certain medicines which were prescribed. So this is all part of the chaos, but people with power, people with influence, people with money were clearly far, far better off than the poorest of the poor, who just had to accept their fate and live through the pandemic and its consequences. So we are all happy that the pandemic is behind us, but can anyone say with certainty there will be no other pandemic in future, there will be no new virus, whether this virus will mutate into something else, and what is this new monkeypox? So huge questions which affect society have been raised by pandemic, and as I said, in a way, pandemic has unleashed the selfishness in man, for oneself, for one's family, and for countries. You know, in Europe, where I was for bulk of the pandemic, the European Union was the biggest success story of countries coming together, forgetting centuries of war, cooperating for common good. But there, one country would nationalize a company of the other country, just so that it can keep its medicines and its medical equipment. And every country, pandemic came to Italy, every country put up barriers against pandemic. Pandemic went to South Africa, the South Africans were good to report that a new variant has emerged. Everybody immediately shuts off travel, they cancel flights, they do not let a South African come anywhere near them. So this whole sequence of events which the pandemic unleashed is something which we all need to think about. And when we think about the world as a whole, when we think about order and resolve. But I wish it had stopped with the pandemic, because what we have seen in almost the immediate aftermath of the pandemic is this absolutely disastrous war in Ukraine, which is being waged, a war of a kind that Europe has not seen since the Second World War, a war where Russia has threatened that it would not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if the NATO gets involved in the war. A war where every day we are seeing destruction of cities, millions of refugees have flown to neighboring countries. Our own students, who were a large number in Ukraine, were caught in bunkers, facing shelling all around them, an experience which even their parents in Kerala have never had, even when there were India-Pakistan wars, or even during if there are people who are old enough to have lived through the colonial times. So the war in Ukraine is also an eye-opener to the world, that it cannot no longer think that the world is steadily moving towards peace, prosperity, cooperation, all these ideals that we talk about, but rather, once again, a country can with impunity invade another country, it can kill people there, it can bomb people there. Much of the world is standing by and watching, the Western world in particular, I would say, because they don't want to trigger a third world war, and there is a genuine possibility that if all the major powers get involved, it will become a third world war. And that is how the Second World War began, that is how the First World War began. Europe was the arena for all these wars. Nobody wants a nuclear war. But at the same time, why Russia is doing this is because of a set of insecurities which the West created. There was a promise when the Soviet Union collapsed, that the NATO will not go up to Russia's borders. There was a written agreement by the US, which the US reneged. And therefore, Russia says, this is my domain, this is my sphere, I will under no circumstances accept a government which is hostile to me in my immediate neighborhood. And if that government, if that country is not willing to listen to me, I will not hesitate to use the instrument of war, which all of us thought was virtually abolished from the world and would not happen again. So, and the consequences of this war in Ukraine is again being felt across the world. The inflation that you and I suffer in India is a consequence of this war in Ukraine. Inflation in Africa, once again, the poorest countries suffer the most. They don't have food. Ukraine was one of the biggest suppliers of food along with Russia. Ukraine was one of the biggest suppliers of fertilizers to the world. So all this have been disrupted. Thankfully, there is an agreement by which some grain has started moving out. But there was a food crisis because of the war in Europe. Equally, whenever there is a war, first thing which happens is the oil prices go up. And when the oil prices go up, we, India, people in India, as a major consumer of imported oil, have to pay much more at our petrol pumps. So a war in distant Europe suddenly starts directly affecting us in our daily lives. And this is the consequence of globalization. This is the consequences of countries and economies connecting each other through trade. And while globalization was generally seen as a positive phenomenon, we find that a war in a distant place can completely disrupt us. So this is two immediate examples that come to my mind, but I can list again and again any number of examples. The chaos in next door Sri Lanka, the coming to power of Taliban in Kabul, a military dictatorship in Myanmar, which recently just executed some democracy activists, highly uncertain politics and economics in our neighbor like Nepal, an election coming up in Bangladesh next year. So far, Bangladesh has been the most friendly nation to us in our immediate neighborhood, thanks to Sheikh Hasina being in power. But if Sheikh Hasina loses, a new government comes to power, will they turn hostile to India? And tensions with Pakistan, none of our problems with Pakistan have been solved. The relationship is virtually frozen. Tensions with China on our border. Separately, tensions in the Asia Pacific over Taiwan. You saw the recent military exercises that China held post-Ukraine war. One of the big questions was, will this inspire China to quickly go in and take Taiwan, which they see as an unfinished part of their liberation struggle, of their independence, of their history. And if China does take a military move towards Taiwan, will the Taiwanese be able to fight back like the Ukrainians are fighting? How long will such a war last? China is huge. Taiwan is a tiny country. Will the US step in to defend Taiwan when, once again, will we have two nuclear weapon powers confronting each other? Will Japan, which is a traditional rival of China, with whom there is historical enmity between China and Japan, will Japan jump into the fray, giving up its post-World War self-defense force, or converting its self-defense forces into an army, changing its policy of pacifism post Hiroshima and Nagasaki? So huge questions arise across the world when you look at problems that confront us. And what can we do? And I add to this ineffectiveness of the UN. The UN, whether it is WHO in terms of handling the pandemic, bringing countries together, or the UN in terms of solving all these political problems, has proven completely ineffective. And also, the other very important phenomenon is the rise of strong leaders across the world, the rise of authoritarianism, the suppression of dissent, suppression of all or many of the freedoms that we have all taken for granted, and a wave of illiberalism, of people who are no longer tolerant of each other, people who do not celebrate pluralism, people in many Western countries, there is xenophobia, there is anti-foreigner sentiment, anti-immigrant sentiment. So all this is growing and rising. And in this atmosphere of problems, crisis, chaos, confusion, rise of new liberals and anti-openness, anti-freedom, anti-dissent sentiments, what does the world do? What can the world do? We come to the question of we. What do we do? All I can say is that we need to navigate our way through very turbulent waters. We need to carefully see what is happening, where do our interests lie, how can we protect our own people when everybody is being selfish, but at the same time, what can we do to bring the world to senses? How can we contribute to peace? How can we contribute to diplomacy? How can we solve our own problems with our neighbors? All this we need to do at a much heightened pace. And that is what where are we headed? This is the responsibility that comes upon us. And here I come to India. And in India, again, when you see India in the context of this highly turbulent and unpredictable world, the question arises as to what should India do? What is the way forward for us? And here I would say the way forward for us is we have some clear strengths. We have some successes. We have some achievements over the 75 years. We are celebrating 75 years of independence. We must build on those successes. And all of us must admit in all humility that we have lots of failings. We have lots of deficiencies which pull us down, which keep us back. We must address these deficiencies. And what is our success? One, political stability. We really, election after election, whoever wins the election, the result is accepted. We don't have opposition parties questioning, going out on the streets, urging the army to revolt and say this government is not a legitimate government. So political stability is one of our strengths, one of the good things in India. But political stability should not lead to, once again, authoritarian rule in India. It should not lead to domination through elections. And we all know, while it is a wonderful reality that every 5 years elections are regularly held, we all know that elections are a result of finances. It's a question of how much money you have. There are a large number of people in politics who come with long criminal records. There is today manipulation through the social media. And in a state like Kerala, it's an absolute tragedy that we haven't been able to address political violence. It is such a shame that there are so many political murders in our state. It's truly, how is it that this educated, literate population which considers itself civilized and knowledgeable is unable to address this problem? Why is it that political parties cannot use democratic means to resolve whatever differences there are between them, and why do they have to resort to violence? So similarly on economy, while India's economic success is undeniable, and in every sense we are an exception, only other country of our size which has achieved great success in the economic field is China. But China has achieved it under an authoritarian system, under a communist system, under a centralized system which is completely different from the political system which obtains. So under a democracy with rule of law, with respect for fundamental rights, India is the only country which has achieved the kind of economic growth that we have seen over the last few decades, ever since the economic reform program was launched during Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's period. So we have, our economy has steadily grown, our scientists have been celebrated across the world, our entrepreneurs are celebrated across the world, and while all this success is something we can take great pride upon, can we really say that we have addressed the problems of our economy? How far have we gone in eliminating poverty in this country? How far have we gone in ensuring education and health to every nook and corner, to every person in our country? how much inequality is there, and is that inequality growing or is it coming down? We're all reading reports about how Adani and Ambani are now in the ranks of the richest people in the world and beating some of the people who had held the top positions for a very long time. Throughout the COVID, when everybody suffered economically, some of the big business leaders, business houses grew and grew and grew and made enormous profits. So how do we address inequality? And lastly, and most importantly, I would say, on one hand, social harmony. Is social harmony in India better than what it was? Is it worse than what it was? If we take the history of 75 years, we were born in terrible times. We were born in the midst of a partition. We were born when there was Hindus and Muslims killing each other. There were millions of refugees going from Pakistan to India and India to Pakistan. But our country stabilized, our politics stabilized, our society stabilized. We have always been proud of our diversity. We have been proud of our pluralism, and we were not only tolerant, we celebrated pluralism. Everyone here, I'm sure, has gone to a Christian friend's house for Christmas, has celebrated Eid with his Muslim friends, and they have joined in the celebrations of Hindu festivals, and Onam itself, which is coming around the corner, is being one of the best examples of every person from every religion, every community, every background celebrating a common festival. But today, that spirit of pluralism, that spirit of commonality, that spirit of brotherhood and solidarity is sadly being challenged across our country. It is being challenged even in Kerala in some ways. I'll just come to that. But also equally institutions. India's biggest strength was our institutions. Judiciary, the Supreme Courts, the High Courts, the judges, the press, the civil society, NGOs. These were the bulwark of the Indian democracy, and in many ways, they look much, much weaker than they ever were. And how do we show them up? How do we bring them back to strength? And it is in this context that I come to Kerala. Now, Kerala, we in Kerala, people from Kerala like to think of ourselves as exceptional. Like we are something exceptional in the sense that we are something different. We are not the run of the mill. We are not ordinary. We are not like the rest of India, particularly like people from North India. I think we like to think of ourselves. And Kerala is indeed different. Despite all of us are fond of criticizing people, we are criticizing things, we are fond of criticizing ourselves. So there is, in general, people talk about a negativity in Kerala society where people oppose things, people find fault with things, rather than construct, work together, join together. But in the midst of all this, let me tell you from my experience of traveling across the world, meeting people across the world, living in Delhi, constantly interacting with people across India and the world, nobody will deny the quality of life in a place like Kerala. People, when we try to talk about attracting investments, people immediately say labor problems, there is this problem, there is that problem, the bureaucracy is terrible, there is politics. But you ask anyone, would you really like to relocate to Kerala and live in Kerala? And they will say, I will come tomorrow. We are not only blessed with extraordinary natural beauty, but we also have much cleaner air than most parts of India. And to some extent, our basic problems of water and shelter are all met. The infrastructure still is being made. I see all the roads being constructed across Calicut. And I was about to say we have clean water. We have clean water to drink. But I wish our backwaters, our rivers were also clean, where people once used to swim. Unfortunately, we don't swim anymore today because they are all polluted. All the municipal wastes are going in. So Kerala has much to offer. Kerala has much that it can be proud of. Kerala is known, is understood, and is respected across the world, across India. But we, like when India looks at itself, we in Kerala, when we look at ourselves, we must also realize that there are a lot of fundamental issues we have not addressed. As we celebrate the 75th anniversary of independence, we need to rededicate ourselves to addressing these issues. I mentioned political violence. I mentioned water pollution of our water bodies in Kerala. And the other, and this is something which hurts me and pains me a lot. Why are there so many offenses against women in our society? Why are there honor killings? Why is there dowry deaths? I'm told dowry in Kerala has, instead of being abolished and sort of vanishing from society, has become even more strengthened, and it is irrespective of religion, whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, or a Hindu, there still remains dowry. And in the name of dowry, our sisters are being exploited or are being caused harm in many different ways. So truly, as Kerala also progresses, prospers, grows in education, in success and achievements, and sometimes socially, we have regressed far from the time when we used to talk about equality and when there was a spirit of socialism in everybody's mind, irrespective of what your ideology or your political affiliation was, where truly we cared about each other and we cared about the women in our society. We respected the women in our society, but if you look overall at society, that doesn't seem to be the case. So Kerala too has many fundamental issues that it needs to look within and address. Even as I would say that it is a very special place and it is one of the best places, we need a lot of pragmatism. There's a lot of hypocrisy around us. I know, I think it was during the COVID, there was that scene of a foreigner who was stopped by a policeman because he was carrying a bottle of beer, and he went in publicly in front of the television cameras, poured it into the river rather than surrender it to the policeman. We have a lot of hypocrisy all around us in everything that we do. We have a lot of obsolete ideas and arcade thinking which doesn't suit the 21st century, which has vanished from the rest of the world, and we need desperately pragmatism to be brought to us. And here I come to what I do as officer on special duty for the Kerala government. I am a facilitator, I'm a matchmaker, I intervene where I can. And it is I see as my task and my mandate to help the Kerala government and Kerala society navigate through these challenges, looking at the world, connecting, doing what Calicut City and the people of Calicut have done for centuries, which is connect with the world, engage with the world, interact with the world, bring the Swiss ambassador here and talk to him. Thank you so much for what the assistance you gave in the past, but how do we walk together into the 21st century? Looking at Vietnam, what can Kerala learn from Vietnam in fisheries, in agriculture, inviting the US to come to Kerala and open an American center, and they call it an American space now, where our students, our youth, our professors can connect with the best professors and best faculty in the US, the best universities in the US, talking to UK and seeing how the Cochin Metro can benefit from the experience of Transport for London, which is the model on which it has been created, inviting the Japanese ambassador to visit Kerala. There is a Discover Japan which is going to be organized in Trivandrum in November this year. Early next year in Cochin, there is a Japan Mela, which is being organized by the India-Japan Chamber of Commerce. So a series of activities. In fact, I was today on phone with somebody in Australia, with the Australian government. Australia is a huge country with lots of skill shortage. Across the Western world, there's a lot of skill shortage. Our nurses, our paramedics, our doctors have been going. But how many other fields can talent from Kerala go abroad? How do we know the movement to the Gulf, but the Gulf is not a permanent phenomenon. All reports from the Gulf say that on one hand, Saudi Arabia has not really opened up. If Saudi Arabia opens up like UAE, there will be hundreds of thousands of jobs. But all other countries, including Saudi Arabia, are imposing nationalization policies. They are restricting the number of people who are coming there. So if we want to continue to go to the Gulf, we need to improve our skills. We need to improve our quality. And the new destinations of the future are going to be Germany, are going to be Japan, which are aging societies and where they have clear needs. With Germany, we have signed, there is a German federal agency which has signed an agreement with one of the Kerala agencies to come to Kerala to identify potential candidates to work as nurses, to train them in German in Kerala. And then after they pass the requisite exams, take them to Germany still as an assistant nurse, give them even more finishing skills in nursing, and train them even more in German. And after they pass all the necessary requirements, give them jobs, regular jobs. So this is one of the best examples of collaboration, rather than wait for somebody to go to Germany and learn German, bring the Germans here. And this we are trying to do with Japan, this we are trying to do with many other countries. So a range of activities are being carried out, is being attempted to make use of the traditional strength of Kerala, that we are an open society, we are a society with history of contact with the world, that we are generally adaptable, we are willing to travel, we are willing to go and live in a foreign society and culture to build on that strength. And at the same time, all the problems and all the deficiencies that exist, how do we collectively address them? How do we limit them? How do we restrain them? So I come here in a way with an appeal to all of you to strengthen my hands in this effort, to give me your ideas, to give me your support. And I'm delighted that the team from the leadership of Calicut Management Association has assembled this audience. And let me conclude on the Youth Day, which Anand wanted me to say something. Today is actually the UN's Youth Day. The UN's Youth Day was declared in the year 2000, following an international conference in Lisbon. But much before the UN Youth Day, India declared a Youth Day, which is January 12th, the birthday of Swami Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda's message to the youth of India, which very interestingly, I just looked it up, the theme for today's, for 2022 India's Youth Day was, it is all in the mind. It is all in the mind. Lord Swami Vivekananda's message to the youth of India was, arise, awake, cease not until you succeed. Utishtada, Jagrada, Pratyavara, Nibodhata. You have all heard of it. And Swami Vivekananda repeatedly said, service to mankind is more important than service to God. Unless you serve the divinity within you, the divinity all around you in people, there is no point praying to Ram or to Allah or to Isa. Dedicate yourself to the service of mankind. So that is the spirit that we need to bring back, not just as an advice to our youth or an exhortation. We can't put the entire responsibility on the youth, but as a collective responsibility of society, of all of us gathered. And let me assure you once again, India's human resources are amongst the very best anywhere in the world. Today, because there are Indians spread out all over the world, everywhere the societies in which they live and work have respect for Indians, see them as models of success. So the basic material that is in all of us, especially in our youth, is excellent, because the youth, unlike the elder generation, have had access to technology like none of us have had. I remember when I was a child, like in our house, first one fan came in one room, then a second fan came, then a third fan came. When a fridge came to our house, it was a huge celebration. As different from that, today if we don't have air conditioning, none of us can live. We all drove cars with no air conditioning. When computers came in, the computer would get an air conditioning, but not the people. So things happen, and the children of today are virtually born with a laptop in their hands, with an iPad. Parents give them these as toys to play, and the mobile phones which we carry, this has the same computing power as a supercomputer 10 years back or 20 years back. There is so much that you can do with just a mobile phone, and the world is flat. A person sitting here can, through Facebook, through the internet, connect with somebody in Peru, somebody in Greece, somebody in Iceland, somebody in Africa. They can work together. They can bring up, they can have new ideas. They can do business like Sitting in Calicut, you can get tourists from anywhere in the world by simply marketing your city and telling them how to go about it, or alternatively, you can send goods from here, you can sell goods from here, you can travel from here. So many things are possible today, and the youth have all these opportunities in their hand. What we need to do as adults is to do what Swami Vivekananda exhorted, which is the theme of this year. It is all in the mind. Give them the confidence, give them the strength, give them wings to fly, and they will do us proud. So let us do what is required of us. Let us fulfill our responsibilities, and rather than celebrate or rather than gloat over the achievements of 75 years, let us use this as an opportunity to rededicate ourselves to the welfare of our nation and for our youth. We give them wings, they will never disappoint us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It's an excellent narration of our topic. Where are we heading with the change the world order? And in fact, it took us through a great control, national, international, and finally into Kerala. One common point what I just wish to bring to your notice is both these international personalities, Mr. Venu as well as Dr. Shashi Tharoor, said in common was, what was the UN doing when the whole world was at the point? So I recall exactly what even Shashi said. He said, during one of the previous crises, he announced copied throughout the place, but now the UN is proving its inefficiency day by day. So before I go into a further question, the floor is now open for a few questions to the respected speaker. Anybody who has got.
Thank you, sir, for your enlightening speech. Especially when you started your speech, you were mentioning about the Indian diaspora spread all over the world. And since I was working in Saudi Arabia for the last 15 years, I have been a part of an organization called Goodwill Foundation, where we used our effort to, find out those people who went from here, from India, and especially from Kerala. Long years, maybe centuries back, and they settled there. They have been instrumental in molding out modern Saudi Arabia, and we gathered them together. And why don't we, as an Indian government official, why don't we think about excavating the Indian roots in other countries' development, so that we can bring them back to India's and Kerala's development.
Okay, I think there are really two things that you are referring to here. One is the roots, or rather the history of India's, the migration of people from India to the world. It is a very glorious history. Our people are spread all over the world. Saudi Arabia has a very special place in that, because not many people know that after Islam was born, India was one of the first countries from which people started going for Hajj. And even during the British times and even earlier, there would be regular ships from Mumbai which would go to Saudi Arabia for Hajj. And there are people who have gone, lived there, settled there, merged with the local population, so to speak. Some of them don't even identify themselves as Kerala or Indians anymore. They are completely Saudiized in a way. And the family from Kannur, the Arakal Bibis, they had I think what we call in Malayalam, we would say Satrama. Rubaks. So which many kings and many people set up there for people to go, pilgrims to go and stay for free, etc. So that is one part of it. But the other side that you said was, why are we not bringing these connections or using these connections for the benefit of the state and for society? So I think both are on the government's agenda, both are happening. We used to have a separate ministry for overseas Indian affairs. that has now been merged into the Ministry of External Affairs. But still, you see that there is a very high priority given to overseas Indian affairs in the central government and in the state government. Kerala is the state which for the first time set up a body like NORCA. But are they all working to the level of efficiency that they require, and are we achieving what we need to achieve either in terms of educating people on the history of our diaspora or in terms of using our diaspora and bringing them back to benefit Kerala or India? We still have much more to do. There are specific programs. One of the problems of Indian diaspora is, like India, it is extraordinarily diverse. The history is very varied. So there are special programs run by the central government which help people from Guyana, from Trinidad, from Mauritius come back and find their villages in Bihar or UP from where their ancestors used to. But these are things which cannot be focused or sort of forced. They need to come up on their own. Where I was serving, Suriname has it is the second largest Indian diaspora after UK in all of Europe. And it is the second largest because there are nearly 2 lakh people from Suriname. Their ancestors were taken to Suriname to work on the plantations in an agreement between the British and the Dutch. And finally, when Suriname became independent, about 1 lakh people migrated to the Netherlands. Netherlands was liberal and gave all of them citizenship. And then within 5 years of independence, Suriname went under a military dictatorship. And so another 1 lakh people, because they were not confident that they would be secure under a military dictatorship, migrated to Netherlands. Fortunately, today, it is an Indian Suriname who is the president of Suriname. He won elections. He displaced the military dictator. But it is a complex society, and you can never be sure when the military will come back or the dictators who exit now, whether they will make a re-entry. So we can't force it. People have to come, and in the Netherlands, in the Suriname community, Indian food is very popular. Hindi is popular. Hindi movies are popular. Songs are popular, but they are all Dutch. English is not their first language. Dutch is their first language. And in many ways, while if at all they come to India, it is only for a pilgrimage and to go back to some temple to Varanasi or so. To re-establish that connection in a modern world when they live in a completely different society is not easy, but we must continue to do that, and I think embassies across the world do. And similarly, I think the Gulf, Kerala is one state where Pravasis have done extraordinary things for the state. We all know the big names, Yusuf Ali or Muhammad Ali from Oman and Dr. Hassan Mupin. So all of them have done great things. You can see their investments, the institutions created by them across the state. But also, I'm amazed at how many Arabic food restaurants you see when you drive through the highway. How many people have come back and opened restaurants, shops, supermarkets. So people are actually seeing different things across the world, bringing their savings back and using these savings for productive investment. Considering the number of people we have in the Gulf, much more can be done, because in the Gulf, many of our people are organized into regional associations. There's a Calicut Pravasi Association, there's a Trivandrum Pravasi Association. So these people can contribute to the city, to the larger community here through various projects. So this is again a process which needs to be engaged. But as I said, the ideas are there, the desire is there. We need to implement it much better and do much more.
Thank you.
So, as you are aware, educated unemployment is very high in there. As you said, a lot of opportunities are coming given whatsoever. How can we make use of these opportunities? Whether any changes occurred in our education system, in the production of our skills?
Absolutely, and I think having gone through the education system, we all know the education system well. And if you, today I visited the UNCCS Cyber Park, where a lot of IT companies have come and established themselves institution we can be proud of. But you ask any IT company anywhere in India, and they will tell you the quality of products coming out of our engineering colleges are inadequate. They will tell you the graduates, the bulk of our colleges and universities just churn out BAs and MAs and BCom graduates and science graduates. They do not come with either applied knowledge or practical knowledge or deep enough knowledge of their subjects or the soft skills which are required for success in today's society. So we must revamp our education system. In the school education sector, we have done extremely well. But in the higher education sector, there is a sense that even to study, people are no longer staying in Kerala. They are migrating outside the state. They are going to universities and colleges outside because there is a better quality of education. And we must link industry to colleges. We must link industry to jobs. If we can create partnerships between industry and colleges and get the kind of courses that will be useful to industry taught in our colleges, then it will be much easier for them to recruit directly from colleges. So higher education needs to be revamped. The quality needs to be improved. It needs to be related to industry. We should have industry as well as alumni part of colleges, part of framing curriculum, part of decision making on what should be the content of courses. I give you a small example. And once again, there are certain Indian things which are very difficult for us to overgrow. I was invited to inaugurate a course which has been started by the Maharjas College, Ernakulam, the college I studied. I'm very proud of it. I'm an alumni on tourism. So I said, I'm always happy to go to Maharjas College and inaugurate. This was during COVID, so it was an online inauguration. But I asked them, what do you teach tourism? How do you teach tourism? And I was told there is this lecture, there is that lecture, there is this professor, there is that professor. Not a single person from travel industry was talking to them on how to promote tourism or what should be tourism studies. And I suggested to them, and I said, and this applies very much to the institutions in Calicut. I said, Maharjas College has such a, when I was a student, 30, 40 years back, we celebrated the centenary. So it has such a glorious history. It has played a role in the freedom movement. Some of the freedom fighters have come from Maharjas College. Political leaders have come from Maharjas College. Some of the greatest professors, poets, writers who Kerala has seen has come from Maharjas College. Can you have a simple tour of the Maharjas College describing its history and get your students to do it? That is the best education you can give them for tourism, and then learn how you can market it and integrate it into a tourism circuit for whoever comes to Ernakulam. So similarly for Calicut, just imagine how much potential is there. I was having a chat yesterday, someone was saying that our people today have reasonable amount of money. They want to do things. They want to do things as a family, but they don't have enough entertainment avenues. We have all grown up with going for a movie as the only entertainment avenue. How do we create healthy opportunities for people to go out, have fun together as families, learn new things, do things together? Today I visited the Sangalaya Arts and Crafts College in Padagara, which is an excellent place. It's a beautiful property, a lot of good work happening, but again, it is not happening enough. It should be the weekend destination for everybody out of Calicut. It should be the place where families go whenever they have an outing. But instead, somebody showed me a video, I think, somewhere in a mall here. Tovino, the film actor, came, and a lack of people gathered there. So why do a lack of people go just to see? And then he had to be rescued by his bodyguards and taken away because that many people came there. So this is reflective of the fact that we don't have enough things to do today. Okay, some malls have come up; they're very good. You can go there, air-conditioned comfort. You can see shopping. The best of products across the world are now available here in Kerala and India also. But this is not enough. We must be imaginative. Again, Project for Calicut Management Association. Have ideas. How do we create healthy entertainment avenues? And it's possible, you know, in the US, in Washington, D.C., where I was, next to Washington, D.C., there is it is part of the suburb of Washington, D.C., it's a beautiful little town called Alexandria. in Alexandria, every year for New Year, they have an alcohol-free New Year celebrations. The celebrations happens throughout the evening and the night. There is fireworks at 12 o'clock when the midnight hour struck, but there are activities for children. There are there are centers where you can leave your children if you want to go out and do. You can eat, you can participate in discussions, there's music programs, there's dance programs, but there's no alcohol. In case anybody is worried that it will be a rowdy, boisterous atmosphere, and to encourage the fact that even at night, families can go out together. Parents do not have to leave their children behind. And now all of us have senior citizens in our midst. We have aged people. So it is not that you leave your parents behind at home and you go for a party, but you can take them along and you can all make a family event of it. So let us all think of more entertainment possibilities, and let us use the history and the culture that is gifted to us. Thank you.
Last question, probably.
Kerala would be the richest of the countries, specifically say countries, if the water resources of Kerala was effectively harnessed. This is CWRTM report. But unfortunately, no effort in this direction has been taken by the government or any local bodies. This is a report by CWRTM, and if Kerala happens to be the richest of the countries, why this is not being considered the report of CWRTM?
Well, Dinesh, I'm not familiar with this report, so I do not know what it is referring to. But when we say water resources, there are many aspects to it. One way to think of water resources is as a source of power. We use water to generate, and you know Kerala is actually a green state when we consider the fact that almost all our power comes from hydropower plants, and we hardly use any thermal power. But you also know about the Silent Valley agitation. You know that there is a big sentiment within Kerala against big dams and against anything which will disrupt the environment. And even today, we are seeing every rain, the landslides which happen. The Western Ghats is an extremely fragile ecosystem, and that ecosystem is collapsing in many ways. So huge interventions are not possible, but small interventions are possible. Mini hydro, small hydro, etc. is possible. That has not really picked up in Kerala. That is certainly an area in which we should move. But going beyond that, what we are not using is our rivers and our water for transport, like the number of trucks on our roads. Our roads get destroyed because of these trucks. If we can move them onto barges, and if we can use barges for transport the way it is done in Europe, it would be wonderful. But there, the problem is one of economics. Today, to move goods on a barge is slower and more expensive than to move it on a road. So people have to be willing to pay a bigger price for a cleaner form of transport, for a better and a more efficient form of transport. So this is something which affects all of us. How many people, if prices go up, if the transporters have to pay more to move things through the water, how much more are we willing to pay for the products that we buy? Plus, moving through the water means enormous capital cost to keep those waterways open. You know, every flood, there is huge siltation which has come. After the 2018 floods, the water level of much of our rivers has risen because all that silt has flown into the river. So to maintain this waterway, to dredge it, to continuously monitor it and make it usable by our boats requires a lot of money and a lot of effort, which again can be justified, can be done in public-private partnership if our economy is big enough, if there are enough activities happening there. Between Maharashtra, Bombay and Pune in Maharashtra, which is a huge industrial area, a lot of goods are shifting onto the water. But today in Kerala, we don't have that level of economic activity. But something we must do and we can do is at least use our water for tourism. We must have boats. It is, after living in Europe, especially in a country like Netherlands, when you come to Kerala, you feel so sad. In the Netherlands, if it is a bright sunny day and you have a lake, there will be 1,000 boats on it. People immediately go out, they do boating, they do swimming, they do fishing, they do water skiing, they have jet skis. Everybody there. The moment there is sun and if there is water, it is full of boats. So they have developed a culture of boats. How many people here really know culture? In the context of the floods, I used to speak in many audiences and say, in a way, it is very sad that people in Kerala have lost their connection to water. Who knows the water? It is the fishermen. That is why when there is a flood, they come to rescue the others. The fishermen live off the water, they live by the water, they know the water, its dangers, its advantages. They use the water every day. But the rest of us, we only know the land. We don't, how many of us know swimming? Once again, Netherlands as a country, 1/3 of which is below sea level, which has for centuries seen floods, makes it mandatory. Every child has to not only learn swimming, but should learn swimming with school bags and boots on. Because if there is a sudden flood, you should be ready to swim to safety, and you should be able to help others swim to safety. So swimming, similarly, anyone who lives near a river, anyone who lives near a backwater, anyone who lives near the sea should know the basics. Who knows the climate change has ensured that there is extreme climatic events happening across the world. There is heat waves, there is cold waves simultaneously. Either there is no rain or too much rain comes together. So if we have to deal with these situations, we must be conscious of the environment in which we live, and each one of us must start using the waters. And as I said, swimming, we are unable to swim in our waters because all of us throw our waste into it. Domestic waste goes into it, municipal waste goes into it, industrial waste goes into it. I'm told that the E. coli in our waters, in the backwaters and rivers, are amongst the highest anywhere in India. That's a water pollution which is going in. So we need to work on a war footing, and that requires every one of us to make a contribution in some way.
Cutting short because of scarcity of time. So we have a few announcements. One is, as you all know, the Silver Jubilee Annual Management Convention of Calicut Management Association is happening at Indian Institute of Management on August 27th and 28th. Most of you might have received this flyer, but as a part of a formal launch, I now just request Mr. Venu Rajamony to hand over a copy of the flyer officially to the chairman, Mr. Ashik, and the convener, Mr. Pradeep, as a mark of launch of this thing. We all will vote for it, right? Everybody. The registration is open out over here. Now, before that, one of the things, as a token of respect and appreciation to you, sir, a small memento from Calicut Management Association. This is what we can have. There's two announcements out over here. The first registration is being done by one of our respected past presidents, Professor Philip, sir, and he'll be handing over his registration check officially to the chairman of the convention, Mr. Ashik. Just two general announcements. We have one gentleman out over here, Mr. Faiz, who is on a cycle solo trip from Trivandrum to London in 450 days. One man, 1 bicycle, 2 continents, 35 countries, 30,000 kilometers in 450 days. He's a friend of mine, also yet to be a CMA member, but he is on a worldwide trip. I just connected him with Mr. Venu, just introducing him to you. You can come back and stand behind us. We have one more important personality, Ms. Sankita Abayan, who has been awarded the World Women Entrepreneur Award by the Junior Chamber International for her works in handicrafts and handloom in line with UN Sustainable Goals. So we have these two general personalities out over here today who have just come to meet Mr. Venu. So that the photos are over? Photo. So thank you both. So that ends this discussion process where we are calling our vibrant treasurer, Chartered Accountant Ms. Ranjini, for the word of thanks.
Good evening all. We have come to the end of today's program. It was indeed a pleasure listening to the celebrity speaker, Shri Venu Rajamony. He has enlightened us with his insights on the topic of our AMC. We also got to listen to his perspective and the interactions with the members.